Hello and welcome to the Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust. I'm Melvin Pryor, out and about today. We're at the Whisby Nature Park and I've got Sam. Hello, Sam.
Hello.
Well, what's your role, first of all?
So I am a education and community officer.
So we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but first I'd like to know a bit more about the background to Whisby itself. How come it's here?
So Whisby Nature Park is basically a nature reserve which is constructed of an old set of gravel pits. So you can see the lakes right behind us here. So the gravel pits were started kind of ye olde times. They worked their way down from the north of the reserve and slowly made their way here.
So this wasn't the first lake then?
No. So the first lake was in what is called Willow Lake now. So
that's the other side of the railway line, isn't it?
The side of the railway bridge on the far north of the reserve. That's the original Whisby Nature Reserve. They moved their way down and then now the Whisby Nature Park encompasses all of this.
It's incredible. And this is the first lake that people tend to see, isn't it?
Yes, it's our main kind of attraction lake. We tend to get more visitors around this park because it's closer to the visitor centre. It's close to the car park. It's got a more accessible path than the far north of the reserve. So it tends to get the most traffic.
And how long have you been here now?
I've been here about 7.5 years.
And what a place to work. So this is where you come to every day with this view?
Pretty much. It's not bad.
It's not bad at all. I mean, do you ever tire of it? Do you get the binoculars out? Are you always looking at wildlife and nature?
Always looking at something. Usually, instead of up for the birds, I'm looking down for the ants myself. But
is that right?
Yes. Yeah,
is that more of an interest?
Yes, definitely for me. They're a bit understudied around the county and across the country, so I love a good underdog.
OK, look, we're going to come back and talk about the education centre where lots of people come to and the sort of things you do here. But first, we'll go out and about on the reserve and catch up with Jill. So we're out on the reserve at Whisby Nature Park with Deputy Warden Jill. How are things?
Very good, thank you. Nice to see you here.
And we've got a glorious day today. Which lake are we looking across at the moment?
So behind us is Grebe Lake and to the other side of us is Coot Lake, and we're at the entry point into the main part of the reserve at the moment.
Because when you arrive at Whisby, of course, there's the big car park there. It gets a lot of visitors, doesn't it?
Yes, Whisby is one of our most popular reserves for visitors. We get close to 200,000 visitors a year, so that's a lot of foot traffic.
And it puts a lot of pressure on, doesn't it?
It does put a lot of pressure on. There are a couple of different areas of the reserve that people can go to, depending on what they want to do. If they want to come and walk their dog off a lead, there's an area of the lake on the other side of the car park before you come into this main part of the reserve that they can walk. It's a nice accessible path. They can walk their dogs off a lead around there. As soon as you come through that main arch onto the main part of the reserve, we do ask that you keep your dog on a lead, a short lead ideally, particularly if it's like springtime and breeding season.
And most people's introduction to Whisby will be Thorpe Lake, when they first arrive here and wander around there. And that's still good for wildlife, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. You'll still see lots of animals and wild creatures, even if it's, just a squirrel or a robin or a bird. It's still a beautiful space, and we still manage it as a nature reserve. We manage the whole of Whisby as a nature reserve.
And certain times of the year, that is the hot spot, isn't it, Thorpe Lake, for certain birds?
Yes, so in springtime, we get the black-headed gull colony, and they nest on those islands that are right in front of the wildlife barn. So you've got a fantastic viewing site of them kind of pairing up, building their nests, laying eggs, and the chicks hopefully fledging. It's a very exciting time on Thorpe Lake.
Very good, and that's what most people can see. Also, if they come and have a cup of coffee in the cafe area as well.
Yes, you can sit in the cafe, sit out on the deck, and watch the black-headed gull colony. We've also had swans nesting on there. We've had moorhens nesting there. So in springtime, it's a real flurry of activity.
So if people want to venture a bit further, you mentioned the arch. They come through an archway, and then there's a choice of places where people can wander, isn't there?
Yes. So we've got a number of circular walks. So on the reserve itself, we've got over 6 miles of accessible walking paths. So you can choose whether you want to go for that nice long walk, or if you want to do something shorter, you could do a loop around Grebe Lake here. We can take it all around there. You could do a loop around Coot Lake here. And then if you wanted to do that longer walk, you can go over the railway bridge, and then you're onto the really wild part of the reserve, which is around Willow Lake and what we call Magpie Walk and Willow Walk.
Well, what's also quite interesting about about the site here is you are quite close to, things going on in the outside world, because if you go around Grebe Lake, you get very close to the A46 Lincoln bypass. The other thing you do on Grebe Lake is you walk beside the railway line.
Yeah, and that's one of the really special things about Whisby. If you think, we are relatively close to Lincoln, we're in the middle of essentially an urban environment, and yet we're one of the most species rich and diverse nature reserves in Lincolnshire. So we're very proud of that, and it's amazing that they've managed to achieve that here at Whisby.
So tell me about the work that's been going on around the area here, Grebe and Coot Lakes. Do you have to do a great deal to those lakes to keep them as they are?
We do management. So essentially what we're either doing from a management point of view is we're trying to stop succession, so stop things progressing, or enhancement, so to improve the areas. What we're often doing here is we're always monitoring the water levels and making sure that they are where we expect them to be for the different times of the year. So in the winter time, for example, Grebe Lake, which you can see here, will let the water naturally rise to a higher level, and those little islands that you can see out there will flood. And that will keep the vegetation down. Then in the spring and the summer, the water levels will start to drop. It'll expose the islands again, and we'll also have nesting birds out on those little islands. So that's one of the things we do in the area, as well as doing things like knocking back the scrub and knocking back the reed if it's starting to overtake areas a little bit, because we don't want to change the profile.
I've just spotted a couple of dragonflies flying over the water there. And this is quite an area for dragonflies, isn't it?
Yeah, so Whisby is a designated dragonfly hotspot because of the number of species and number of dragonflies that you will see here. So we have something like over 23 species being recorded here. So that's a really fantastic.
And some are really big, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got the big, the biggest ones you'll normally see would be the emperor dragonflies, which are these beautiful green and blue, very fast moving, very striking dragonflies. Yeah.
Just having a quick look at the map here then. So we've got Coot Lake, Grebe Lake, Teal Lake is across the other side of the A46 bypass. Do people venture across there, and what are the attractions there?
Yes, so to get there, you can there's a path that takes you under the bypass, so you don't have to risk your life. And that's a wild, as much as possible, we try and keep the reserve as wild as possible. I've talked a little bit about the sanctuary areas that we try and do. So out at Teal Lake, that's very popular with our wading birds, and in the wintertime, autumn and wintertime in particular, you might see a lot of birds, what we call on passage, as they're passing through. It's really quiet, it's serene, it's just a beautiful spot to really be immersed. And yes, you can hear the railway as it comes past, you can hear the A46, but the wildlife there is just going about its business. I've sat at the screen and watched two fox cubs playing in the distance as common terns are nesting on the island there. It's a really magical spot.
I think what we'll do, we'll walk on a little bit, because I'd like to get to another sort of junction that provides a bit of a barrier and a bit of a change on the reserve, because that's where the railway line is, and it's very different the other side of that. So let's go up to the railway line and see how things change.
Sure.
Jill, we've actually moved now to what I was describing as a bit of a boundary, because we're right beside the railway line now at Whisby. So just explain, because what's special about the area is there are so many different habitats, aren't there?
That's right. So the railway line kind of cuts Whisby in half. But Whisby itself, when you look at the whole kind of 375 acres that we've got here, is not unique, but it's very special in the fact that we've got such a diversity of habitats. We've got obviously 50% is probably open water bodies or moving water bodies. We've got grasslands, we've got meadows, we've got reed beds, we've got some fen, we've got woodland, we've got wet woodland, we've got some mature oak woodland, we've got scrub. We've also got a little patch of what we think is original Lincoln heath, because a lot of the surrounding areas was all heathland before the quarrying started. So with that's the reason why we've got so many different species that we've been able to record here, because essentially there's a little bit of habitat that suits so many different species, and it also means there's a lot of different ways we're managing those habitats to keep everything in really good shape.
This is a place that I love to visit. It's a regular for me because I live quite close by. And when you go round, is it Grebe Lake, the far end of Grebe Lake, before you go under the A46, there's a patch there that I can remember seeing sheep. So do you use animals for maintenance at times?
Yes, we do. We have both cattle and sheep on the reserve, and they help with our grazing. So we can mow the patches of the reserve if we want with tractors or by hand, but we also like to use cattle and sheep. So we'll often put sheep in the wintertime, especially on that little patch. That's our heathland special. And they do a really good job of keeping that grass level low in the winter time and helping move seed around and those kind of things. And we have some rare breed Northern Dairy shorthorn cattle that we've currently got in the grazing marsh, and they do a fantastic job grazing that area as well.
Because of course they'll graze, but they'll also leave deposits behind.
They will.
And that will encourage the insects and the bird life. It all evolves, doesn't it?
It does. Whisby is a very dynamic landscape. It's constantly evolving, and that's what natural processes are always doing. So they have a very integral part to play in the reserve about how we manage the reserve.
So we mentioned the habitats, but it also means then you have a variety of flora and fauna, wildlife, animals, birds that love this place and call it home.
Yeah, and we've also got, essentially, whatever your interest is in nature, whether it's just coming for a walk in a lovely, serene, tranquil, wild space, or you want to, you're interested in birds or flora, there's something here. We've got some really special, unique plants. One of them, for example, are the orchids, the green-flowered helleborine orchids. I think we're the largest colony in Lincolnshire here at Whisby, which is, again, remarkable.
Now, a lot of people will get to this border, as I'm calling it here, with the railway line and won't venture further. So for those that haven't ventured further, what is there the other side of the railway line?
So we have a lot of our woodland, and our non-intervention woodland is that side of the reserve. We have some really great meadows and grasslands there as well. We've got a little bit of habitat, the sandhills habitat, which is like having dunes. So we've got some unique species that you'll see there.
Would you get sand martins, that sort of thing there?
We haven't had any breeding there, but you do see sand martins, house martins, swallows, all of those species love that side of the reserve. You'll see the swallows particularly everywhere, swifts as well.
And at this time of the year, no doubt they're getting ready to fly back.
Most of them have probably headed off or are on their way for migration.
And that's the joy of this place. It's different every time you come along because the seasons change it, don't they?
Yeah, and obviously birds are probably the most notable feature that you'll see. We get a lot of what we call autumn and winter passage or overwintering birds that are different from what you see in the spring and the summer. So most people will kind of notice that. They'll notice the change in bird song, they'll notice the change in birds, but you'll also see the species, the plant species change. We've got some beautiful meadows at the moment that are going over into seed, and it's just a joy watching them come through the progress of the year. We've got some amazing fungi species, so it's just, everything's really special.
We've mentioned the management work that you do, and we see the coppicing, we see the scrub work that you do, and all that sort of thing, but the other big job, and I'm looking down here now, are the footpaths.
Yes.
A lot of footpaths to maintain.
Yes, with over 6 miles of footpaths, and they're predominantly accessible. The majority of them are accessible. We have to maintain those paths and make sure that they are usable. So we spend a lot of time, both myself and the warden together will be making sure these paths are kept in order, but also our lovely volunteer team who work with us on the reserve. They put a huge amount of effort working with us, keeping these paths accessible.
And that's part of it. We've talked about the fact that there are large numbers of visitors that come to the park. So therefore the paths get used and they have to be maintained.
They do. Whether it's keeping vegetation trimmed back so that you can safely walk down the path, filling in the potholes so that if you're in a wheelchair or using a mobility scooter, you've got a nice safe path. It's like that does take a lot of work and effort to keep this accessible, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that everybody has a great visitor experience, and it's always that balance when you're managing a nature reserve of and maintaining that great visitor experience, maintaining that accessibility, but also making sure that you're here for wildlife and that wildlife is, does have that natural wild space.
Well, surprisingly, we haven't had a train go past while we're standing beside the railway line. We're going to go down now to the other side of the park, and we're going to meet some of the volunteers and find out the sort of roles that they do at Whisby. So, Jill, we've come down to the main sort of entrance point to the reserve and Whisby Nature Park. You've got volunteers here doing all sorts of jobs, including painting today.
Yes, we do have to maintain the infrastructure as well. So whether that's keeping the fence or the hides in order, and the volunteers really just play such a crucial role in the work that they do. So there's just 2 wardens here, myself as the deputy and Graham as the senior warden, and we look after 6 reserves, so 5 other reserves as well as Whisby. So you can imagine just the importance of having those volunteer teams getting stuck in and helping us side by side with the work. So they help us with everything from painting fences, mowing, raking up after we've done the mowing, helping keep the paths clear, helping look after the paths. They really are an invaluable part of the team.
And both you and Graham, it's not just Whisby either, is it? You've got other sites to look after as well.
Yeah, we've got at least 5 other reserves, all in the local Lincoln area, that come under our kind of area of responsibility. So, and they're all different and unique in their way. We've got another water body, we've got meadows, we've got fen, we've got woodland. So, we really have a lovely variety of habitats in the reserves that we look after.
We first met at a very different reserve, didn't we?
Yes.
Because tell us a bit about the background as to how you got involved with the trust.
Okay, so I'm a career changer. I worked in a very different area in corporate for many years of my life, and so when you and I first met, I was doing my first residential volunteer placement at Farrings, and that was my first step into trying to change my career. And then I think we met again then when I moved on from Farrings to Salt Fleetby, so that was my second placement. Then
You're touring all the reserves.
I know, I've seen so much of Lincolnshire, and they're just all fantastic. They were just the most amazing places to get a real understanding of what it takes to be a reserve manager and to look after these really special places.
Has it been what you thought it would be, though?
Yeah, it is. I went on to a traineeship with a different wildlife trust for a while after that, and now I'm back here as a deputy warden, and it really has been what I hoped it would be. I get to spend, most of my days either working out on the reserve or working in support of the stuff that we do on the reserve. So yeah, it's been everything I've hoped for.
Excellent. Let's walk across here. Do you call this the barn, don't you?
We call this the wildlife barn. This is an area, it's actually run by our education team, but we have volunteers here as well, who kind of interact and meet people as they come onto the main part of the reserve. So as you come from the car park past the Natural World Visitor Centre, you're walking onto the main part of the reserve. So this is a fantastic entry point. It's also, we talked earlier about, it's one of the busiest places in springtime because of the black-headed gull breeding colony on the islands that you can see out the front of the reserve. So it's a really nice introduction.
Well, I tell you what, we'll catch up with Hugh, who's one of the volunteers who's here today. Hugh, morning.
Good morning.
You're counting. You've got to keep a record of how many people come and see you, have you?
Interaction with the public, yes.
Is that right?
That is the idea, yes. And normally, if I see them coming down the road, especially with the children, if you can interest the children to come in and have a look, the parents come in, and sometimes they see something that they've not seen before, and they get that, oh, wow, and that makes my day.
How long have you been a volunteer then at Whisby?
I started volunteering here in 2013.
And what made you do that?
I was retired, and my wife kicked me out to sort of go and find yourself something to do. And I was here on a Monday, and there was another guy here, one of the other volunteers, and half an hour later, he said, have I thought about volunteering? I said, well, I need something to do, but I don't know enough about it. Well, I'm sure that if you've been out, you will know more than 80% of the people. So I went to see the warden, as it was then, and he said, yeah, come on, give it a go. And he put me in here with 2 other people for about 2 weeks. And I did realise, yes, perhaps I do know that a little bit more. And then coming here every week, I got more confidence. And then I come in early and I have a walk around, see what's around, so at least I can give that information to people.
And I find people like yourself who know what you're looking at, you like to share that knowledge, don't
definitely,
you?
Yes, yeah. I had a couple here a few years ago now. It was late afternoon, and they walked down, and I greeted them and got talking. He said, oh, we went round yesterday They said, but we didn't see anything. I said, pardon? You didn't see anything? I said, come in here. And I had the scope set up on some snipe that were in there. I said, have a look in there. There's nothing there. Look again, dead centre. I said, there's nothing there. Look at an eye under something long and thin. And then eventually I got the, oh, wow. And then half an hour later, after spotting other things for them, they said, where can we go and buy binoculars?
So the advice is, if you're coming to Whisby, don't walk past the barn, come into the barn and have a chat.
Definitely, yes. Because people don't realise what is actually out there. Sometimes it pays just to stand still and watch the wildlife come up to you. I learned by my mistake. My wife got me into bird watching many years ago. And I remember going to Frampton Marsh, and I thought, this is boring. There's nothing here. But I had to sit down and have my lunch. And it was only when I sat down, I started seeing, ooh, there's a curlew, ooh, and start picking things out, So sometimes it does pay to sit, watch, and listen.
That's Hugh, one of the volunteers that you might meet when you come along to the Whisby Nature Park. Just as you're entering the park, don't forget, call into the barn, have a chat with the various volunteers who are there to tell you a bit more about the experience. Sam, we're sort of looking at the education side of things with you now. You mentioned ants earlier on as a specialist subject of yours. Yes. Are there many ants around?
There are quite a lot of ants around. In particular, around this little area, there's one of my favourites, which is called, scientists call it Myrmeca.
Pardon?
Myrmeca.
Lovely.
Yeah. But common people like me tend to call it European fire ant. So it's a little red ant species, and it has a real nasty sting on the end.
I was going to say, when I see ants in the garden, the red ones are definitely the ones to avoid, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. All ants can bite. But it's more of the red ants usually that tend to have a bit of a sting.
Yeah, you see, I've learnt something already, and that's the joy of you being involved with the education side. There is a complete education centre here, isn't there?
There is, yes, there's an education centre here. It's almost 25 years old. It's got 2 large rooms. One we use as a classroom, one as a community hub. And we do school visits here. We do our own kids clubs, youth groups, adult training workshops. There's quite a lot that goes on here.
And I notice there's a sort of pontoon that takes us right down to the lake, so no doubt pond dipping is popular.
Very popular. It's one of our usual sellout activities throughout the year. Very popular activity. We get families, young people going down to the pond dipping platform, popping nets into the lake, finding little creatures, invertebrates, sometimes fish. We had a little stickleback fish yesterday. So all sorts around here. And you can find all sorts of creatures in our lake.
I've also noticed, as I've been wandering around Whisby today, there are little sort of display areas with butterflies on. So education is always there in the background, isn't it?
Yes. So we're big fans of public engagement and education here. Whether it's in your face, like they're coming to us for a school day or one of our family activity days during the summer or one of our workshops, or if it's a little bit more subversive and we have little free trails going around the lakes, they'll have little stops, whether it's a little activity they can do for 30 Days Wild in the summer, or it could be something like we've got today, which is little butterflies with little bits of information that tell you a bit about the different species.
Tell me a bit about yourself and your background in wildlife and nature. How did that start?
Oh, I've always loved nature. I was one of those ones. I've been into nature and natural history since I was a wee lad, but I started here about 7.5 years ago as a placement student from Nottingham Trent University. Came on my placement year and got asked to stay once I graduated, which was lovely.
And why are you from this local area anyway?
Yes, Lincoln born and bred. Came here on school trips for donkey's years, so yeah, I'm a real local.
And do you think of those school trips that you came on now that you're leading them? Do you sort of think about the things that you would have been interested in as a child?
Very much so. So at that age, you're getting all sorts of different real formative experiences that will shape your future self, essentially. So the idea behind this sort of place, these education centres like ours here at Whisby, is to give those children, usually these young people, these kids, some real good engagement activities, real good memories to take with them later into life. So whether they end up in conservation of nature as a career or not, they end up with a love of nature regardless.
So plenty of room inside. You've got 2 big classroom areas in there, haven't you? But if the weather is nice, come out here, you've got log seating.
Yep, we've got log seating. We've got an outdoor classroom made from an old parachute donated from the RAF at nearby RAF Waddington. We've got a wildlife pond constructed by our youth group, our junior wardens. We've got coppices, we've got trees, we've got a little orchard. We've got lots of different assets in this education grounds.
And what do you find when the school groups come? What are they particularly interested in, do you think?
So the big ones the schools come for is pond dipping.
Yep.
They love the pond dipping. Mini beast safaris, so looking for terrestrial invertebrates. So mini beasts and creatures without a backbone that live on land and in the air. We'll do environmental art with them. We'll do scavenger hunts. We have storytelling as well. So it's a real mix, but it's usually the big hitters are the pond dipping and the mini beasts.
One of the nice things about the education side of things is you also get involved with Duke of Edinburgh. People can get involved with that project, can't they?
Yes, very much so. I'm a big believer in getting the youth element of young people out and about and into nature. So one of the things we're trialling at Whisby now, for the whole county really, is providing a way that young people undertaking their Duke of Edinburgh award can have a good time in nature, whether it's for their volunteering section or their skills section with the conservation tasks we'll be doing, so they can come out and join the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust in managing nature across the county, starting here at Whisby, to go and contribute towards their Duke of Edinburgh award.
And are there things like junior wardens? Can we get involved in that sort of thing as well?
Yes, so we've got Junior Wardens Club here. It's our kind of internal in-house youth club. So we have a really burgeoning group here at Whisby.
Doing what sort of things?
Oh, all sorts. We'll do anything from bushcraft, we do coppicing, we manage the education grounds here. The clubs tend to do a lot of the practical conservation. The one here is also youth-shaped, so they also decide what they'd like to do each year. So we go on off-site trips. We've been to Woodall Spa Airfield for a trip. We've been to Gibraltar Point this year. And we also have our summer camp out, which is a good one.
So they camp here?
They do. They come here with us on the education grounds for Whisby.
Watch out for the ants.
Yes, watch out for the ants. We get to see all sorts of visitors, from owls to bats, hopefully kind of things like badgers as well, all sorts of different things we might manage to find around.
And do you find that younger people nowadays, interested in the environment, that sort of thing, are keen to get involved in projects that you do here?
Very much so. So our group here at Whisby has been oversubscribed to a point. We've had a large waiting list for a long time. So we're trying to find ways of managing that so we can get more young people involved, so we can have a wider reach.
Need more people like you, don't we?
Well, not necessarily like me. I know what I'm like.
Bless you. Well, look, if you'd like to know more about the things going on here at the Whisby Nature Park, go to the website, get all the information there as well. Particularly, I would imagine, in the school summer holidays where things get booked up, don't they?
Yes, very quickly.
Yeah, well, have a look on the website, get more information, and come along and see everybody here at Whisby Nature Park. Thank you very much indeed for listening. This has been the latest Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust.